Hello everyone, this is Colin, and today I'm going to show you how to add hot air return vents to your HVAC system in your house. You're looking at a plot plan for my house, which is a typical single-story 3-2 that was built in the Phoenix, Arizona area in the mid-80s. It's a pretty typical area construction for that time period and was originally equipped with a swamp cooler on the roof, which was later swapped for an HVAC unit a couple decades ago, which is also located in the same spot on the roof. It's also typical for Arizona homes of this time period in that the HVAC ducting is not very well designed and doesn't perform that well in the summers. The main areas, that is the kitchen, dining room, and living room, and the hall, all do pretty well because they have an unobstructed path to the hot air return. The bedrooms, both the master, the southwest, and the 10x10, do not do so well because there's not a sufficiently large pathway for the air in the bedrooms to get back to that hot air return in the hall. There's the crack under the doors, the bedrooms, is not big enough, and this causes the pressure in the bedrooms to be slightly higher than the rest of the house, and this directs a disproportionate amount of cold air from the AC to the main areas as opposed to going to the bedrooms. What kind of exacerbates this issue is the southwest bedroom and the 10x10 bedroom here have southern exposure, which gives them a lot of sunlight and heat. The west side of the house is also fairly warm in the afternoon. So this makes the need for their air conditioning requirements a bit higher, especially the southwest corner, which has two exterior walls. So this gives two basic effects here. Is with the thermostat in the summer set at about 78, the master bedroom's usually around 82 Fahrenheit, and these bedrooms are somewhere between 82 and 85, which is not very comfortable. The other effect is if the AC or the heater is running and you hold one of the bedroom doors ajar and let it go, the AC will actually suck the door closed. So now that we've detailed the problem, let's talk solutions, design, and execution. I did a bit of research and found that this problem is fairly common, which is one of the reasons I decided to do a video on it, and that there's some band-aid type fixes for it, like putting vents on bedroom doors. These sorts of solutions didn't really appeal to me. They looked pretty ugly and they kind of compromised the privacy of the bedroom. So I decided to go with a professional solution, although one I would design and install myself. So to fix this issue, I decided to install hot air returns in each of the 3 bedrooms. These would be installed in the ceilings, and I settled on 10-inch by 10-inch returns for each bedroom. 10 by 10 is a small size return register you can find, or I could find, that could fit a standard air filter. I estimated it big enough because the main air return in the hall here is a 25 by 20, and 3 10 by 10s represents an increase of 60% in filter area for that return. So the location for the 3 returns was also considered pretty carefully. I wanted them to be as far as possible from the cold air registers. Otherwise, the air coming from the AC could short circuit, go across the bedroom, and be sucked up in the new hot air return and not actually cool the room effectively. So putting in the returns in the ceiling helped in this regard because the hot air rises and cold air falls, so it'll reduce the possibility of short circuiting. I checked and adjusted the fin direction of the cold air registers in each bedroom and made sure they were directed somewhat downwards to also mitigate that possibility of short circuiting. I also wanted to make the new returns as close as possible to the exterior walls because that's where most of the heat is coming into the bedrooms. And at the end of the day, I was able to get them pretty close to where I wanted them. The biggest constraint was the slope of the roof, which limited how close I could get to both this south wall in the southwest bedroom and the 10 by 10 bedroom, and the slope of the roof also limited how close I could get to the north wall in the master bedroom. I basically got to the point where I was putting them in a section of the attic where I had about 3 feet of head space from the ceiling to the roof. And this whole general arrangement is kind of the reverse of what you'd consider a well-designed HVAC system. They typically put the cold air registers on the outer wall where everything's hot, and the returns are all centrally located. Of course, I wasn't going to redo the entire system. Gotta kind of play the hand you're dealt with here. So for the registers on these new hot air returns, I used register boots to have a 6-inch duct connection, and I used a 6-inch flexi duct with the thicker higher end insulation options. From each of these bedroom returns to the main return. They make a regular duct, which is less pressure drop, and flexi duct in larger sizes, which I could have gone with, but I went with the 6-inch flexi because I figured these are pretty short runs, and the higher pressure drop of flexible duct of this middle size probably wouldn't be a big issue. To address possible system imbalances, I installed louvered. They have a butterfly valve couplings where each of the 3 flexi ducts connects to the main return. So the flexi ducts running from the master bedroom and the southwest bedroom basically ended up being identical, with about 23 feet of the 25-foot run being used. The flexi duct going to the 10 by 10 bedroom was much shorter. This ended up being about 12 feet or so. So this would have been a bit of an issue because the 10 by 10 bedroom would have gotten a lot more cold air, hot air pulled out and cold air added to it than the other 2 bedrooms. So I actually throttled this louver down to about 50% open to kind of compensate for that and even the flow out to the bedrooms. Route planning ended up being pretty important for this job because 6-inch flexi duct has, at least the higher end variety that I got, has 3 inches of fiberglass insulation and radiant heat barrier. So each one of these flexi ducts is about 1 foot in diameter, and given the tight clearances in the attic, it's kind of hard to get around that size of duct when you're in a crawl space. And these 2, the ones running to the master bedroom and running to the southwest corner bedroom, they're not teed together, they're stacked on top of each other here. So this pretty much obstructs that entire crossing over anything in this direction. So, you know, if I'd done both the master and the southwest and then tried to do the 10 by 10, I would have had a real hard time getting over here. So this one ideally would have been done first. Technically I did the master bedroom first, so I had to step over one of them to finish the 10 by 10. So let's talk costs and procurement and the time. So most of the parts needed for this job are fairly common. I got everything off Home Depot and Amazon. Lowe's, Ace, or any other hardware store will probably have them, but they may not have them in stock. So for my initial purchases, I ordered everything online, including the stuff from Home Depot, in part because they delivered everything for free, and some of the HVAC parts were not stocked at the regular stores, or at least not stocked in the quantity required. All told, I spent about $600 on this project, but that included about half a dozen plywood sheets that were laid to access relevant areas. So if you already have that, you can knock that off the price. I spent 2 full Saturdays doing this. The first weekend I spent laying down plywood to the new return areas and doing the master bedroom vent. The second Saturday I did the other 2 vents and cleaned everything up. Other considerations and safety. Attics are generally hot in the summer. If you've got a poorly ventilated attic or an attic in Phoenix, Arizona, the temperature is downright oppressive. If you have an attic that is both in the Phoenix area and poorly ventilated, it can be downright dangerous to be up there in the summer. So for that reason, I planned and completed this job in January to reduce the temperature misery factor as much as possible. I also repaired the spinning roof vents and added eave vents around the north and south walls of the house prior to doing this project, which also helped the attic temperature considerably. Doing this project will require that you would traverse significant distances in your attic. Most attics are completely unfinished. That is, you'll have drywall, hopefully covered with insulation, and 2x4 structural members on spans ranging from 16 inches to 2 feet or so, depending on the design of the house. The only part of the attic that you will be able to stand on will be the 2x4s. With that, while that may be enough for an inspection, this amount of work is not really feasibly done while walking a tightrope on the 2x4s. So you're going to need to lay down and secure plywood sheets so they can move around and complete the installation with a reasonable degree of ergonomics and safety. Remember, drywall ceilings in between those 2x4s will not support your weight, and if you fall, you'll go right through it, injure yourself, possibly seriously, to say nothing of the fact that you will ruin the ceiling in that area and make a mess of your house. I don't cover the installation of attic plywood in this video. You can look for another one on that subject in the future. Let's move on to parts needed and tools.
Okay, to do this job you're going to need a few parts. You will need a Speedy boot, and I really do recommend the Speedy brand rather than a regular boot, and I'll explain why later. You'll need a collar, again the Speedy collar, and I got the Speedy collar with the louver in it. And once again, I'll explain the why buy the more expensive one later. A 6-inch hose clamp. Really, you should have 2 of these. I kind of screwed up when I ordered my parts and only got 1 for each, and so I did without. But you really probably should have 2. You'll need a new register. In this case, this is a 10-inch boot, so I've got a 10-inch register, and of course a 10-inch air filter to go with it. You'll also need insulated flexible duct. In this case, I've got 6-inch duct to match the 6-inch boot connection, and this is the more heavily insulated variety. They make a cheap version that has a thin layer of insulation and a more expensive version, I believe it's R8 here, that has even thicker insulation, so it'll do better in terms of energy savings. Again, a little more expensive than the cheap variety, but definitely going to save you money in the long run. One last thing I forgot to mention, this is the parts you need to do a single air return. And in my house here I did 3 of them, so you'd need all this times 3. Alright, let's move on to tools. Okay, we talked parts, now let's talk tools. You're going to need some tools to do this job. You're going to need a screwdriver drill. It really does help to have a battery-powered one here, because you're not, we're doing shooting some screws and plywood, and well, not in plywood, but in 2x4s, and drilling some holes and some light sheet metal. So you don't need something super heavy duty, and dragging a cord is a pain in the butt. So if you have a battery-powered one, that's the way to go. To go with that, you're going to need a drill. The exact size doesn't matter. Something bigger will work better because it's used to start your tin snips. You will need a driver, whether it's a Phillips or whatever size screw you're using for the job. You need some of those screws, obviously. You need 4 per each boot, plus 1 for the pilot hole, marker hole. You're gonna need tin snips. You're gonna need a box cutter, preferably one with a longer blade. And really, it's got to be sharp because you're gonna be cutting fiberglass. You're gonna be cutting aluminum with fiberglass reinforcement. So start with a new blade and have a spare. I went through a full blade doing this job. You'll need a drywall saw. Nothing fancy here, just regular old one will work. A pair of dikes to cut the flexi duct, because you can't use your tin snips to do it unless you want to ruin your tin snips. Flat blade screwdriver. This is to tighten the hose clamps. If your hose clamps has a Phillips, then use Phillips. Sharpie to mark where you're going to cut holes. Masking tape. This is to tape those trash bags up to the ceiling when you're going to cut holes through it. The wider variety will work, but you can use the narrow stuff if you want. You also may need a Phillips head screwdriver to install those final registers, depending on what size and type screw it has. Aluminum tape. This is probably one of the most important tools of this job, and it's one that you can easily mess up. They make a bunch of different varieties of this in different thicknesses and widths. This is one place where you don't really want to go cheap. This, I think, is, well, let's say this is probably 3 inches wide. Having finished the job, and now I'm shooting video afterwards, I can tell you I would not use anything less wide than this. Let's talk PPE, which is what everyone hates. When you're using your tin snips and folding down that sheet metal duct, if you have sheet metal duct, leather gloves are definitely necessary. Otherwise, you're definitely going to want, the disposable blue nitrile gloves. If your attic's insulated, and it probably is, if it's cellulose fiber, there's going to be dust all over. There's, fire retardants and rodenticides and all sorts of nasty stuff in that you don't want on you if you can help it. You're going to be handling fiberglass insulation on flexi ducts. That stuff, if it gets in your skin, will be super itchy and annoying for a week or two. So just in general, be wearing your nitrile gloves while you're doing this. Your attic's probably dark, so you're going to need a light. And you're going to be using both hands a lot of times, so it really does help to have a headlamp. Glasses or goggles. This is kind of subjective, depends on what kind of insulation you have up there and what you're doing for a particular step. I use safety glasses because goggles kind of fog up. Respirator. Again, I kind of went in the overkill department here. You could use just a dust mask here, but I find that the dust masks don't really seal that well. Most people don't have them fitting properly, and they're not paying attention, so you're usually breathing around it anyway. And if it's uncomfortable and you're not wearing it right and it's not sealing right, then why are you even bothering to wear it? So I use the half mask here, which is rubber, and it seats very nicely. Obviously, it's got the HEPA filters to protect you from any of the nasty dust. All right, let's get to it.